Welcome everyone to Extra Hours, part of the officehours.global network of excitement. You can go to officehours.global/join if you want to get involved in what we're doing here. We talk about media and media production and all sorts of live production, live event production, AV, all that sort of cool stuff is what we're talking about every single day of the week. So here we are on Extra Hours, which is not so much extra anymore. It used to be extra because it was an extra one on a Monday, but now it's the only one on a Monday, but the name is stuck. And so I'm already getting wound up by Chris Fenwick because he wants me to introduce him. This is Chris Fenwick from in the Bay Area. Hello, Chris.
Good evening.
There we go. Did you want to wrap it up already?
See, it's better already, bored? Right? It's better already.
So much better. So much better.
Okay.
All right. Thank you. Good to have you here, Chris. Chris is a Final Cut editor extraordinaire. So you can keep that in mind when he wants to talk about all these other things. Pull him back to the thing that he knows well. And that's
hold on. Cut. There's a technical problem. I don't know what happened. For a second there, my face went off the screen, and I don't understand. It seems like the show's better when I'm on the screen. Right. So we should probably just
everyone just buckle up. It's going to be an interesting ride. All right. Let's see where we get to. Up in Seattle, Washington is Guy Cochran. Hello, Guy.
Hey, greetings from the other side. Chris is on fire tonight. He's just warming up in the pre-show. It's just, man, he's already like, come on, get over with this intro thing. I got stuff to say.
Yeah, we've got stuff to talk about, and we're not even going to talk about the weather as we go around.
No weather on this one. Just skip that small talk. We got to get right to the goods.
That's right. On the outskirts of San Francisco is Alex Lindsay.
Hello,
Alex. How are you?
I'm doing well.
It's
raining.
This the last one. The last extra hours for you.
We have one tomorrow, next week.
Time.
Do we have one next week? Or are you planning to do one next week?
Well, I don't know. I thought that was your last day.
No. I got 2 weeks before I
okay.
Into the Cupertino.
All right, good. All right,
so
good.
I'll be here next week.
So there's going to be
if you want
another
me
one?
to be on. If you want me to be on.
Is there going to be another one?
Of course.
Oh, okay. So I'll see you guys next week.
You're out. You're going to be on the last one. I thought it was the last one. I thought it was the 5th of January, but
it is the 5th of January, but there's still a whole another week in between.
The 30th. Yeah, you're right.
There's one on the 30th. It just sneaks up on you. Dates, calendars.
Exactly.
Isn't it great though when you think it's going to be a certain distance and then you suddenly realize there's a whole nother week? You're like, yeah. Now you have a whole week you don't even know what to do with, Grant, because you didn't have that in your. You thought that it was. But
if there was ever a time in the year, the calendar, where time days disappear, you don't know what day it is, you don't know if your trash cans have to go out on which day, if they're going to come and pick it up. That's what happens between Christmas Day and New Year's Day. It's like the abyss of days. So that's what happened there. It's fallen in there. We've almost got time to complete the introductions. Zach Jeffers, also
Howdy.
in Washington State, right?
Eastern Washington, Spokane County. Yep.
There we go. Very good. Nice to have you here.
And I just recently was watching the chat. If you're not in chat, go to chat because John Wallace just said Guy's his former drug dealer. So we got some great conversations already blooming in the chat for everybody.
What?
Yeah, I sold a lot of gear back in my day. So
okay, there we go.
Thank you
for clearing that up.
Some people like to call me their dealer, and they tell their wives, he's my dealer. He hooks me up with the goods. So yeah.
Okay.
Equipment dealer.
Very good. Save us from this discussion, Chris Sabato. You're more east, right?
No, I'm in Oregon, so I'm just the Guy and Zach and me. We're all it's our neck of the woods.
Pacific Northwest versus
Pacific,
worldly Southwest.
There you go. Okay, that's why you're all sprightly, because it's not as late for you all. There we go. Oh, it's all Pacific time zone.
Yep,
Very
everyone
good.
but you.
Do you know what's so it's I'm in Adelaide, South Australia. It's just gone 12:30 p.m. We're just going to lunchtime. So plenty of energy here, I think. All right. So we want to take some questions. The way the extra hours works a little bit is a little bit maybe taking questions a little bit longer, perhaps, and so we may not get to every question, which makes it important to both post your questions and also to vote up on those questions in Makana. So please do that, because we'll take the ones off the top, and also jump into the chat, and we'll be watching that there as well. So let's see where the conversation goes. Guy, what's our first question?
First one in from John Nichols in Concord, California. Any advice for setting up remote production capabilities, PTZ, TD, lighting, etc., at a recording studio? What would you prioritize? Any gotchas to share?
I would raise my hand, but I can't find my page. Somehow it disappeared. You'd think I'd figure this out over time. I was trying to bring
first timer here.
I know, exactly.
First timer.
They have these things called bookmarks. I don't know if you've heard of them.
I'm going old school here.
Yeah.
So we're actually working. I'm working with John. I spent this morning actually with John at a recording studio, and so we're getting pretty close with Swell. I think we're going to be calling the sessions Swell Sessions coming up soon. In fact, the first one will be January 4th, my last day. So anyway, I'm going out with a bang. My daughter and the lead singer for her band they're gonna come in and play some great music for us. So we're working on that right now, putting it together. And so what we have there is we have a router, switcher, hyperdeck, some other stuff that Francis Fry made available for us to use. Francis had a couple more things than needed. So anyway, so we're putting that into place. We have an X32, the old one that we used to use for office hours. We have, and then we put in, and then John helped us with Dream Machine, and we've got some bridges that we're using to build a VPN network into it. Today we spent a little bit of time with Marcia Kerrigan. She's the TD that did some of the shows from the stage that we had years ago, and so we've got her set up with a panel in Nebraska, and so she is in Nebraska with a panel, and we got it working. So she's hitting the panel, and it's switching the switcher. And so we've got that that confirmed. Tlaloc made a ETC board available that we're going to be using as a test. We can't keep it forever, but we're going to give it a shot. I don't think we'll do a lot with the DMX, but we want to test it. So we're going to be working on just testing and just having a little bit of something going on that he can work with there. So that's going to be put into place. Of course, we'll most likely use Unity Comms for to get started. Then it's a recording studio. So there's running through Pro Tools. Mickey's been involved with working with Alad, who has Swell, is the founder of Swell, and we're figuring out all the bits and pieces there. We've put in a Dante network, when I say we, and mostly John Nichols who asked this question. So John has put an incredible amount of work into this. So I was doing the testing and going, this would be great, but just didn't have the time to do the nug work that was required to turn the corner. And John's done incredible work making sure that this works. And so anyway, so we're going to take some cameras in. We're going to be doing some tests. We might post some tests or at least jump into after hours next Monday with just some kind of banging on things, so you can kind of see it happening. But we're going to get closer. And then January 2nd and 3rd, you might see some other little tests that we're doing where we start to kind of figure out angles and lighting and everything else. And then we'll do a little bit of a stream of a tracking session. The girls have some songs, some originals, and potentially some covers that they might do, and we're going to track those, and so you'll get to kind of watch that process. And Marcia's going to call the show, so we're kind of working on that. So, but that's been a long time coming. After we closed the stage, we really felt like there's such an opportunity for recording studios to. The funny thing about live streaming is that when we stream from a stage, the what really ruins it is the audience. Like, so like, you know, so the audience gets in the way. I can't put my cameras where I want them. I can't, you know, they're making a lot of noise. They're doing all, you know, they're infecting my vocals. They're doing all this other stuff.
They want to hear.
They want to hear.
So
they want to
annoying.
see. They, you know, there's loud stuff. It's, you know, so I always felt like, you know, if I was going to watch a stream at home, I would much rather watch something from a recording studio where it sounds amazing. There's no audience. I can put the cameras wherever I want. It's kind of this cozy, you know, feel of that process when I'm watching it at home. And so we're going to be kind of playing with that idea. One of the goals down the road is to get to a point where, you know, there's a lot of us in office hours that are, you know, doing the controls, and there's only a couple people on the ground. Now we'll probably have a couple more at the beginning. I think based on John's question, we were discussing this today, is that we are looking at how we set it up so that we can, you know, how do we make it so that at first there's going to be camera operators, but eventually we might do something, whether it's Ronin, you know, RSs, you know, like a Ronin, you know, Ronin 4, you know, RS or something like that with a head that we can control, or potentially FR7s, or, you know, whatever we end up using to shoot some of these, so that we eventually move to kind of a remote operation with maybe one roaming camera. One of the things that we're looking at, my son and I are looking at getting is a I talked about it, I think in the past, is the Ronin, the Ronin 4, you know, the chicken head, which I think they had 4 of them, I guess, for F1. They don't even bother to hide them. They're in the shots. They're in the movie. they just use them. They just see them in the background. They show them, and then they show them shooting, because no one would really identify them as a big camera, you know. And so anyway, so I think that the thing to figure out right now is just, you know, the first step was getting the IP working. And so we'll be testing a lot of those bits and pieces. And of course, while it may not be me going into the future, I'm sure that the folks working on it, John and others, we'll get them to drag them on to make sure everybody knows how we're doing it. Our goal is not to, you know, is to share what's working and not working related to it. But I think that, you know, I think that the FR7s are still the kind of the best solution for most of the fixed cameras. We just can't afford them right now. so we'll see where we can get to there. But I think that there's, in the meantime, we've got some Blackmagic cameras already, and so we'll probably start with those.
Nice. Chris Fenwick.
Yeah. So several years ago, I got to interview a guy named Kenny Stoff, and he's a DP who shot the Sound City documentary for Dave Grohl. I don't know if you've ever seen it.
Oh yeah, I've seen it a couple times. Yeah, 5 or 6 times at least. Like,
yeah, it's fantastic. And so Kenny talked a lot in the interview that we did about how he made the film. He obviously, as a cinematographer, he's a handheld guy, and he wants to get in and do all the things, but he heavily relied on PTZ cameras. And, you know, this is whatever it was, 15 years ago, something like that. And he heavily relied in the studio bits. So in the doc, Dave buys the mixer from the Sound City stage, moves it to his home studio, and then he invites the Neve. Yeah. And then he invites a bunch of guys in to record, and he invites Trent Reznor and that guy from the Beatles, and, you know, stuff like that. And so one of the guys, I can't remember.
Some dude like McCartney,
McCarthy,
something
whatever.
McCarthy. Yeah, I think
it had something to do with politics in the 50s. Yeah. But no, he so Kenny talks about how he used the PTZs because he wanted to, although he wanted the angles that he wanted to shoot, he definitely needed to lay back. And when you watch Trent and McCarthy and the other guy, I can't remember the other guy's name, when they're composing, and Dave, of course, when they're writing a song in the end of that movie in the studio, and it's magic. You really watch it happen together with them as they're putting it together. And Kenny talked about how he was able to get that because he had coverage with the PTZs. So if you've ever spent time in a recording studio, it really is kind of a magical vibe. And I hate that word. It's what the kids always say, but it really is a vibe.
Yeah. Well, and I think that, yeah, go ahead.
And that's what he was trying to preserve.
Yeah, I think that the PTZs eventually, it reduces eye line problems where the artist always wants to look at somebody walking by, and so the PTZs really become something. And I find that with PTZs in studios, that the artists just forget they're there. Like they just, after a while, they just kind of blend into the atmosphere, and no one really thinks about them. And so I think that's what really makes it work.
And the technology available to Kenny when he did that was a shadow of what we have now. So now we have 4K little palm size thing. So
yeah, absolutely.
Zach.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of like the modern technique of doing reality TV, all being PTZ and all that stuff, and having recorded it in studios before, and to your point, not trying to screw up the vibe or the feeling or the moment in that session. I was thinking about, as a remote producer, how often I break stuff and have to do some sort of magic to get it all working again, and to not interrupt that flow and how we would accomplish that. So in my head, I was going a different direction with all this questioning, the answers on this question, until I started hearing about the PTZ and how you'd fix that. And so it got me thinking about, how would you connect to that device? How would you control that device if your primary mechanism failed, so that you're not screwing up the environment and the actual vibe of what's going on? So I would recommend investigate some time into like a double redundant backup way of controlling your systems without maybe interrupting what's going on.
Yeah, I don't think there'd be any reason for us to anything that would. There's nothing we would need to do to go into the room to grab onto an FR7. We'd have to be figuring it out in the background anyway. And I think that we would, we're definitely gonna.
I was thinking in like that remote context. If you're not there, if your end goal is to not be physically
right, I'm
present.
saying we'll have to. If something goes wrong, it'll be a network problem. Like it will be, like there'll be a network issue.
Right.
And with this system, with what we have right now, it's complicated. There's a bunch of double natting and so on and so forth. So, we're talking through cellular backups, to make sure that we can see it there. We're talking through eventually, if it turns into a business, all the networking changes. Like like right now, it's like a hobby. It's an opportunity for us to, do something. The good news is all the recording is happening locally. So, and again, we're not going to start with FR7s. We're going to be starting with, hand operated cameras. So the show will continue to go. We'll still get ISOs. The director will still, there's less for it to go wrong at the beginning, at least. I think that, it'll take us time, but you're right that I think that if it became a business, there'd be two relatively fast connections, at least 100 megs a second, if not a gig each, going into the building. You'd have, two connections. You have, again, the ability to administer most of the IT stuff remotely. Two people on the ground that can support those things. Those are the kind of things. But a lot of times you kind of hack through things until you figure out how to generate revenue with them. And we've got some ideas around that as well. Because I think that if you look at a network like Nugs, I think we could be a great one to tie into that network. That was created first for the Grateful Dead, obviously with the name, but also with other with a lot of other, Dave Matthews and others. But I think that one could be a great platform for that. But again, to your point, we would have to make it much more robust than what we're going to do at the beginning. One of the things that I have to always get over is I want all those things at the beginning, and then that stops things from happening. so there's part of it is like, let's make it happen, and then start to figure out how to make it work well.
Good one. Guy?
Yeah, I mean, it's content. Content is our friend Sky. He's not here right now, but he would say, it's about the story. So are we doing this for technical reasons? Or are we doing it to bridge a gap or until we get the bigger guns? Because people are going to tune in or they're not. But I've seen it in Mad in the Kitchen when we had a community that there was more people behind the scenes than there was watching the show. And we were doing some of that remote. I think Marcia stepped in for that one to cut the show. No, it was Nate.
Well, Nate is all over the studio as well. So Marcia is going to be available. Nate's going to the Olympics, so he's going to be out for a while. But right now the goal is to get the goal right now is just to get it off the ground. This is my attempt to wanting to have it be perfect has delayed it for years. Of wanting to have all the things in one place, and so a lot of this is, there's a long line of bands. Our initial tests, and we'll post some of those soon in the studio that didn't stream very much, or you just saw behind the scenes, are good enough that like lots of bands want to show up, like little bands, but lots of little bands want to be recorded. And so, so I think that we have a long string. We could do it as often as we want. And the key is for us to figure out how, from a technical perspective, it's figuring out the model. But I think that from an artistic perspective, it's trying to figure out, you have studios who need to find another business. Like the business of being a studio is not a good one, like it's not, and so, I mean, let's just be, call a spade, is that, being a recording studio is very, very challenging for almost all the recording studios. And so you have artists that, unless they're able to tour, can't make any money. Like there's just no money in the thing. So how do we create something where artists can connect with their fans, studios have a way to make, revenue? How do we make that sustainable, and how do we make it scalable? And like many things, it'll start rough. But I think that our version of rough is probably a lot better than what I've seen out of most studios, especially live, because the live component, I mean, I've seen a lot of studios do some great stuff, when it's post. I'm talking about how do we create live where they can answer questions and be part of the conversation. And then we also get something that's great in post. The post part can be done, but I'm really interested in trying to create a live experience where fans feel like they can.
So now with the further knowledge here of what's going on, I would say room mics, mic up people who need to be heard. So if this is catering to not just the post for an end product of recording or a live stream that's presented to the audience, mic up if the engineer is going to be walking around, put a headboard mic on him, or put some shotguns in the room. Because I'm mixing something right now where it's dead because they didn't have a room mic, and when they did open it up, it was far away, and so people would be talking and I couldn't hear them. And now it's like, great. I wish you would have told me that you were going to do that. It's one of those things where you go, okay, now we got Dante and we got everything flowing for all the instruments. They're all mic'd up, but what the other people want to hear is who's operating whatever they're operating. If that's the side of the story, that's why I started story.
And we're definitely going to be recording some of the call, Marcia calling the show as well. And one of the, I don't know, we'll see what it takes for us to do it, but eventually the goal is, I don't know if it'll be the first one, but eventually the goal is to be able to have some examples online where someone can see the ISOs playback in real time, like let's say over Zoom. Like we did this before, where you could edit between people talking to each other. Imagine us looping, 6 cameras or whatever into Zoom, and all you have to do is have Zoom ISO or whatever, and you jump on and push it out to your switcher, however you want to do it. And now you can, but one of the audio feeds is Marcia, because there is, taking someone who's done 2,000 or 3,000 shows and listening to her call the show is how you learn how to do this. like it would be the master's course if you just do it over and over and over again until you understand those things. And then we're going to bring her in to have conversations, and she's really excited about helping us move down the path there.
Nice. And then just to answer the question, the internet we talked about, but I had it happen to me last week. The power went out, and I have a backup internet. So my primary was fiber. It's fine. It's buried underground. But there was a big windstorm, and my secondary internet went out. So Grant, you know what it looks like when you get the alert on your phone that says you've lost your secondary WAN.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
when the power went out, they only had so much UPS power, and I was already running on generator, so I had no power. Secondary internet's out, and I'm working on a project with Alex that's pretty important with people in the field, and I can't go out. And if I did go out, I was remote VPN'd in with my IP address whitelisted. So I had to go and say, hey, I'm going to fire up another instance in the cloud. That'll be my new IP address. So if everything wipes out, I could be on over cellular and still. So I had 4 internet. So I sent my son at 6 a.m. to Home Depot to buy me a Starlink right when they opened. So then I'd have 3 internets, because you can have 3 internets with the Dream Machine, which is what you guys have. So at the studio. So I never thought I'd get past the secondary where I had, would get worried about a tertiary. It's that pace thing that you always talk about. But it's the worst to know that you might lose control with operators out in the field. So back to what Zach was saying, control. How do you retain control? Because if you lose something like an IP address that's whitelisted, what's the backup? So we'll have an engineering instance in the cloud. So there'll be a mixer, there'll be an encoding machine, there'll be a contribution machine, but then an EIC machine, and you could use that for emergency things like taking control of something. So in this case, if it was the PTZs or the lighting, you just have a computer that you can access through whatever it may be, VPN, or if that fails, Splashtop or some other way. So multiple ways, as Zach was saying, to take back over, because the worst feeling is this is live, this matters, and I have no control. Like that's just,
and just like
you do not want to be in that position.
Just like before the show, Alex was trying to control a second screen on a computer, right? And he had to have hands on to do that. And it's a silly example, but it's a real world example for some of these productions where there could be a prompt that you don't even see on the computer that's blocking your access. And so I always think back to like hardware KVMs and those types of like mechanical people in the middle that can do things for you. And when I learned about those little remote control KVM button pusher thingies, like those just kind of blew my mind on like how many problems those could solve if they just existed, if I just had planned ahead.
Yeah, that reminds me of Synergy to move my mouse in between, but I also have a hardware because I've had it like where something happened and I was just like, oh, here's the button that I pushed to get to that hardware wise. So it is nice to have a, as Alex has said, pace, think about, and that's the reason why I love doing these rehearsals and these tests and faxing everything out, because that's what that means. Actually, what does fax stand for? Facilities, somebody.
Something.
Yeah, but you fax it out. You basically check it. You don't just check it. You really go through it. You go through all the Q to Qs and make sure that everything fires. If it's the lighting, if it's the PTZ controls, if it's the shading, because that's the worst. Like, oh, my iris is stuck open or my ND filter's stuck on and I have no way of turning that off. And now I'm locked with an exposure that doesn't make sense. So that's the other thing that I would love to see in this is shading capability or access to, adjust exposure remotely ideally with no omniscope, so we could actually
I think that what we'll work on pretty hard in a studio environment is to not put us in a situation where we need to do too much shading. Like live, we can do it live, but if we light it well, it should be something that stays pretty it'll take us a while to tune it in. You'll see us probably on the second and third tuning the cameras in. My goal is the cameras are tuned in via LUTs. We're gonna use LUTs to tune them in so that they're really right on each other. And so exposure might be okay, color will not be okay because they'll be on. Like they'll be lined up to it. But for the most part, the goal will be to have the cameras at their base state when the lights are on to work, and then go from there. But yeah, I think again the other thing you always have to weigh is with all of these things, again, we know enough about what could go wrong that we prepare for all of those things, and it's why beginners get under us and do things that we wouldn't do really great. I remember watching, it was a real lesson for me. I was I taught a class in Pittsburgh in 2005 about green screen, and there was one person in the back that asked all the questions. Like this girl in the back sitting there asking all these questions, all very pointed. You could tell that she was working on something and she was trying to figure it all out. And so I talked to her afterwards, and I said, like, oh, you really get into this? And she's like, yeah. And I said, what's your name? And her name was Justine Ezrick. And she was still, this is before all this other stuff happened. But immediately, I literally called Leo and I said, I found the next Amber MacArthur. Like, I was like, this is the next. You could just tell, like, and we flew her in, I think the next year. I think it was that summer. By the next Macworld, we had flown her in to be on the show because we were just like, So the main thing is what she was able to do is she take a little candy cam, like a little point and shoot, and do green screen shots that I would just not do. Like I just wouldn't go down that path. Like I just, I would just be like, oh, that's not going to work. That's too compressed. The lighting isn't good, whatever. And she would just make it happen, and she wasn't worried about it. And so I think that the lesson I took from that, and the thing I always think about is when we're getting started, we know that we're not only going to have one internet that's double natted. We're only going to have a certain amount of stuff. We're going to, figure it out. If we wait until we have all the other things in place, we'll never have anything. So there's a certain level of, we got to turn it on at some point. So that's why you start with small bands and not big bands, that are understanding, and we'll make sure that they don't have anything. We'll pay them back whatever they paid us, which will be nothing. If it doesn't work,
pay them double.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, yeah.
I love the story with Justine. I like the idea that you said, "Oh, what's your name?" And she's like, "Oh, Justine,
The funny thing is the
Justine."
I Justine didn't exist. Yeah, it didn't exist. It wasn't even close to existing when I met her. And it was funny. She said, I said, "What do you do now?" She goes, "Oh, I work on this magazine." It was like a Pittsburgh art and culture magazine. And I said, and I looked at her and said, "So what do you do on the magazine?" She goes, "I do the magazine." Like she just the whole thing. Like she wrote it, she put it up. I was like, okay, she's gonna do well. So.
This is a great topic. There's a couple of things in there, Guy. I really like when you're talking about the room mics, obviously capturing the sound into the recording, but from a remote point of view as well, just having ambient mics is really handy. Like just when people go off their mic and they're now talking about something, all the team that are remote still feel very connected to it. Because they can hear what's going on. And so comms is key, but also just hearing what's going on, overhearing conversations that are happening on stage in that space is really cool. And the immediate thing I thought of when I read this question was witness cams. But the idea that, particularly with PTZs, it's really nice when you have a wide camera that sits behind your PTZs. And when you move them, you can see them physically moving. It's just actually something that we take for granted sometimes when we're standing behind cameras, where we look at them and we're like, why, what is that looking at? And you just take a look at it and you can see where the head is pointed, or you're just grabbing your control and you see, okay, it's moving, great. That's all. It's really handy having that wide angle view of everything that's happening. So you've got full context, and that's the same with the sound then as well. Now I've got full context of the sound of the stage and the full context of the cameras. Fenwick?
Kurt Cobain.
Him recording one of their songs is very low key, whispery sort of thing. And he had come into the control room and was laying on the couch, and he was kind of going through what he was going to sing, and the engineer like killed the monitors in the room and just handed him a 58, like a talkback mic. Said go. And he was just a whisper of a voice, and it became,
and trying to if you're really tracking something, trying to figure out what's the safe space for the artist. The reason that I'm bringing my daughter and the lead singer for this her band is because they said, oh, we want to record something, and I handed them an iPad and an old USB Pre 2 that plugged into the iPad and Logic. And my daughter never used, I don't know if she's ever used Logic. She's used GarageBand but never used Logic. And they wanted to track a couple things. I came back 2 hours later. They did something that they had sent me that as a music director, I would have put it on the radio. I would have dropped it right into medium rotation. See how I was like, this is an incredible song. And they put harmonies in. They did multiple passes. They figured it all out, and it was incredible, And I was like, okay. And they have a lot of talent, but the hard part, what I'm afraid of, and why I'm probably going to get her better equipment, is that there's this moment that you have when you're an artist that you do a song and you may never get back to that space, and I want to make sure that, like the Big Head Todd and the Monsters is a good example. Bittersweet from Big Head Todd and the Monsters, when he got an album deal, they re-recorded it. The new version is not nearly as good as the original. That was cut in his basement, with a little demo tape system or whatever. If you listen to it, if you go back to the song, I think it's Songs from the Attic. If you go back to the original in 1990 or 1991 and listen to that one, and then listen to the new one, the new one's way better produced, and it has all the cool things, and it's not the same at all. The authenticity's gone.
Last comment, Chris.
Well, I find it interesting when Alex is talking about a production, he's talking way over my head in terms of like what you're aiming at. But when you like the whole concept of we just need to make it work, right? That's where I live, and it's often like, okay, well, this is the right way to do it. We can't afford that. What's the next step down? Okay, we can't afford that either. Let's find a way to make this work. It's not pretty. It's ugly. It could fail, but if it fails, it fails. Like we're not making millions of dollars, and it's about just kind of making things work sometimes.
It's funny. I do a lot of volunteer work for other people specifically so that I can fail. Like I need to have a place that's safe, because a lot of my, most of the jobs that I work on are very rarely have a budget of less than 50 grand. Like it's just, I think it's going to be less. And then when I do the math, it's going to be more. They're all in that range. And what's at stake. I mean, the one I did last week was, 3 minutes, and it was more than that. So there's so much pressure, and there's so much rehearsal, and there's so many backups to the backups to the backups, and so many things that can't go wrong, and so many, and all this process. And the reason I still run out and want to, my son and I are going to start doing little like vignette, little things for local businesses, because I want to play around with. I love using video to help local businesses sell their whatever. And at first we're going to do it for free because I don't want any pressure. We want to figure the format out. And I'm going to tell them flat out, we may screw this up and have to come back and do it again. We may do whatever, like we may want to come back and do reshoots, but you're not going to pay anything for it. Like we're just doing it because we like your business, and we're going to give you a piece of video you can put on your website, and my son
in the
gets
end,
to
you
train.
get what you pay for.
Yeah. And then, but there'll be some point if that, what's happened for me is I start that way all the time. Like if I don't know how to do something, I go, okay, I'll do it for free for somebody. I always try to find a client, because clients make you do things that clients will ask you to do things that are uncomfortable because they don't know better. They don't know that that's hard. They just know that that's what they want, and that forces you to get better much faster. And so I always try to find a client, and I go, okay, I won't charge anything for it. And then you just dig into it. And so I'm always trying to figure, to find that out. I usually then charge a little bit, then I charge a little bit more. And then at some point, I'm usually the most expensive.
Slam them. With
No. It's
huge...
not. It's not usually the same clients. It's as I get new ones or whatever. And to the point is I learn what's expensive and the way it should be done and how I figure it out. Yeah. So all the safety procedures and the amount of equipment that I use and everything else slowly scales up, to the little concerts that I used to do in the past scaled up to a multi-million-dollar theater activation that I'm working on right now. But that started with, hey, let's just get a bunch of people together and see what we can do,
Yeah. The last thing I'd just mention about backups is that sometimes we think, obviously, technically, we think about all the technical backups we need, but it is important to have a content or programmatic backup as well. Like what will happen if the host is unable to be able to do their thing anymore? Like who steps in? Or is this a production that can just pause? It's okay. Like I can imagine something like live streaming a recording session. If it just needs to go offline for 10-15 minutes, it might be okay. As in, it's okay depending on what the content is. And so sometimes with the online events that we have, if we lose the host or the person who was presenting, we just lose them. Who's the person now that's going to step in and sort of take over? And when we have that in place, it works really well. And everyone's like, it's totally fine. You don't have to have, necessarily a huge strategy. You just need to know exactly who that person is when you lose that. You lose the content.
Having two people that you can jump to that can talk to each other is gold.
Yeah.
Like you can go forever. Yeah. Like, and we've done that in so many big events where we kick the show off. The pre-show is really two people talking at the corner of the stage, or off stage or whatever, talking about what's happening. Number one is that's a much better pre-show than most of the other things that we could do. Yeah. Number two is when the main speaker who's going to do the keynote is late, they can sit there and riff, for 10 or 15 minutes if they need to, and we just keep on sitting. Someone's behind the camera going like this.
Yeah.
Just keep stretching. Just keep stretching. But yeah. It's being able to kind of hold off and have that conversation, take stuff from the audience, whatever it is, is, and then anytime that something goes wrong, you can always kick it, especially if you use them in the pre-show. You always have people that you've already established that you can immediately cut back to. And we've definitely done that.
Some of these big shows that we do in Zoom, just the ability to say, hey, we're going to take a break now. What we're going to do is break into breakout rooms.
Yeah, exactly. Talk
right?
amongst yourselves.
And you can talk about this. Yeah, it's like the equivalent
paired sharing.
Turn to the three people around you and talk amongst yourselves for a few minutes. It's like, we're going to put you in breakout rooms of 5 to 6 and have a discussion about where you're at. What are you learning? Whatever it is. So that can work well. All right. Next question.
That first one only took 40 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll be here until midnight.
We move a little slower here at Extra Hours.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Next one's coming in from Zach Jeffers in Spokane, Washington, asking, when trying to stay flexible and up to date with modern production workflows, software systems, etc., how do you balance learning the new thing methods versus fine-tuning your current workflow for excellence? Yeah,
I really love this question, Zach, because one of the things that I do once or twice a year is I am a sound engineer for an a cappella band, and we do 1 or 2 tours every year, and the kit that we use is based around an MR18, the Midas version of the Behringer XR18 was the Midas version, and that's what I use. And every venue I go to, I'm plugging that, all of our mics and ears and everything come out of that, and then I'm mixing on an iPad, and then it will plug into whatever board they have in the venue. Some of these beautiful venues have amazing consoles, big Digico consoles and all sorts, but I'm still just using my iPad mixing station into the MR18, and that's what I choose. And I was only thinking, we just finished a tour, and I was just thinking, what am I missing, like, on this technology that's kind of pushing 10 years old or something now? There's been a few updates here and there, but no major firmware updates since then. What am I missing? And I would be slow to change it, because it's not just about, what's interesting to me in this is that in lots of other areas of the business, I'm constantly looking at what the latest and greatest, that will speed this up, or this will do this function way better. In this particular area of what I do, I'm like, there is so much more muscle memory, the creativity, there's all this stuff that I know all of this really well, that I can run these shows, execute them really well, that I'm reluctant to go and change it, for the latest and greatest, just because apparently it will sound better or whatever it is. I'm like, I'm getting a really good sound out of this because I know it so well. And so I find myself in this question sort of on both sides of it, saying in some areas, totally, you're going to get these new features that it will be better, more efficient, whatever it is. But in some areas, you're like, this is what I've got. It's not broken. Don't try to fix something that's not broken. And so, yeah, I find it a fascinating thing to talk about. So I'm interested to hear what Alex has to say.
Yeah, I move slowly. I tend to move slowly on new things. So I take what I know and I usually add little details to it. And like, oh, we're trying this one new thing, or this one other little thing, or we're especially for paid stuff. For unpaid stuff, I'm much more aggressive. Like, so a lot of times I'm taking it, I'm not making people pay for it because I don't know how I should do it yet, or I don't have the budget to do it correctly yet. But I know that this is something I'm interested in, so I want to go down this path of trying to figure it out. And so a lot of times so I take things on for free, but I also can very aggressively, sometimes I'm extremely aggressive, about of the new technology that I'm using. Sometimes it's a one time, like you only get to do it once. Like when we did now I also allot enough time to figure out the new thing, which is like, for instance, when we did the two-way thing that we used for NAB in 2023 or 2024 or whatever, when we did it, 2024, that was pretty much 2 weeks of my life. like it was, like there was, borrowing things and working on things and cobbling together cameras and, figuring stuff out and like building the, I mean, it was like a pack of new things from Amazon every day and pack of things from B&H every day, just constantly buying into, just spending into the process. And even then, with all of that work, kind of got to the last, it was the night before we had to go live that I had the camera system fully working. Like it was like all the bits and pieces of it. And there was this moment where I was like, it's working. Like it actually works the way it worked in my head, and it was, but it was a brutal, back and forth. And it was, even with giving myself a lot of time to work on it, it was still a big lift, to make that actually work. But I knew that I get to do it at NAB. This is the perfect place to do it. And I don't know where I'm going to do it again, like how this is going to work. I got all the pieces together because it was NAB is why I got a great wireless system, and why Sony gave, if I just said I wanted to go to a farmer's market, I'm not going to get the wireless system. I'm not going to get the Sony cameras. I'm not going to get, there's a whole bunch of things that I'm not going to have available to me. So to do it, I needed it to be in the place that it was at. And so, but that was very, very aggressive, and it didn't work all the time. Like, and we told everyone it wasn't going to work all the time. That was the other thing, is we said, hey, this is new. This is experimental. It's not going to work all the time, and so we got too far out and it break up. Now we also built, this gets back into what Grant was talking about. We built places to back into. So we've got it by having a desk. I use desks a lot as a backup, because a desk is going to, having a wired connection with someone who can talk with a camera is always this like safety blanket. You can always throw back to it and someone can talk and chat and have a different thing. So by having, we kind of broke up in that case. We if you think about the hour, we had a live hit through here, then we had the desk, and then we had a live view hit, that kind of thing. It was a little bit more complicated than that, but it was kind of like we built it with 3 different things specifically to spread the load. So that one team doesn't get tired, one team isn't exposed. We always have somewhere to go. Those were all things that we, kind of, worked on to figure out, how to do it, knowing that we were out on a ledge, and so it is really figuring out where you put pins in the wall.
Guy?
Yeah, it reminds me of a couple of things. One was back when I was in college and I was going through this pre-press class, and I had learned about what they call stochastic printing. And it was a new way, because the old way was these dots and halftone dots. For those of you who go back that far, we had to shoot everything on film, and then we had to run these screens, and you had to lay down cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. Well, I was working at a high-end printing place where we're using stochastic printers that were $250,000. And so I saw what stochastic dots look like. And there was this article that somebody wrote, and I believe it was Mac User. And I showed it to my pre-press guy, and he's like this 70-year-old guy who's just like, I've never seen nothing like that. So I printed a separation. I showed him what it looked like. And he was just blown away that it worked. As I ran it through the press, he had never, his mind was so blown. So stuff like office hours is a safe environment to fail, but it reminds me of these people that they're so ingrained. So the other example is Tenacious Ventures, this company here locally that I do a lot of work with. They still use pinning farms, and it's crazy to me, but it's a safety blanket. It's that retreat back, they've got decimators hooked up. They know it's going to work. And if one fails, they have another one standing by, and they just bloop. And so certain workflows, it's hard to get somebody to shift. And a couple things that I've learned from Alex over the years, it's keep the elbows in. And Grant, you've heard me say it in production, leave the knife in. Don't move it, just leave it. We just got to get through this, and don't touch anything. We just need to have a successful show, because the last thing we need is the client saying, blah, 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 something went wrong. But if we could just keep it to where they won't notice anything.
Why is it bleeding? It's bleeding everywhere.
I will say with the pinning farm thing, though, is that you do have to make decisions about their stability, and then there is greatly reduced quality, which is, oftentimes I will not worry about efficiency. Like I don't care about being efficient. But the quality difference between pinning and zoom ISO in the specific one is so dramatic that
I think you might be overstating that a little bit.
Really?
I get it.
Have you done?
We did a side by side.
Guy, you did a side by side,
and we couldn't see the difference that dramatically. Like I was looking, and these were on huge 65-inch OLEDs, brand new, and we ran it through both systems. I did zoom ISO with a Sonnet box that they had purchased just because I kept talking them into it, and then we put it side by side, and they're like, we're hard pressed to see the difference. And I was like, okay, I put my tail between my legs and
the frame rate. I guess the frame rate to me is like It's dramatic.
25. It's 25. 25 is 25.
No, but it stops and starts on the screen capture. The screen the screen scrape. I notice the screen scrape stopping. Like it's not as it doesn't get all the frames.
It's not as fluid.
ISO is much better at delivering all the frames out. I also think the color looks better, but I think that the primary thing is it's the stability of the frame rate is much higher in ISO, in my opinion. And then there's just the raw convenience. Like I speak as someone who's been pinning longer than who pinned for a decade, like with Google. I mean, I've been pinning since 2011. You know, like it's not like I never pinned. You know, like I'm saying, oh, this is I've been a pinner. You know, and I gotta say,
it's a show title.
As a longtime pinner,
a T-shirt.
As a longtime pinner, I can tell you that once, and it took a while. Like Andy was showing it to me, and I was like, okay, and then there was some moment where, once they got because there was a bunch of things in the early days that it wasn't quite ready, and it wasn't stable, and there was a moment where they updated it, and I can't remember where the update was, and I was just like, oh, it was like I saw it, I played with it. Andy was in the office, the two of us were sitting there fiddling around with it, and I saw it, and it was working, and then I was like, oh, I'm never pinning again. Like then there was like this a week or two of us just ripping everything out. I was like, I'm never doing this again. like it was pinning, the errant mouses, the little things that pop up, that is
chat.
That is so. That is like
100%.
Anything popping up, especially because Zoom ISO exists, it is inexcusable. Like anything ever showing up on top of your someone talking is inexcusable.
The repin's the best. Like that's one of the reasons why they're switching over. Like if somebody drops out, you need to swap their spot. It's so fast in Zoom ISO. Or you could actually just set it up as a Stream Deck.
You can have two.
Refresh the sources.
Well, the big thing is you can have two Zoom ISOs. Just the number of, because one Mac Studio can put out 8. It can put out 16, but can put out 8 easily. You can have just two of them join, and you just switch from one to the other. It's instant.
And then the screen share, you could just say screen share, pin,
exactly.
You're done. Yeah, you're not worrying about second screen. No, you gotta, it's a nightmare with the old-fashioned way.
Yeah. Chris,
I'm, I don't know, fortunate or unfortunate enough to work at a level of production where there's always people way above me, right? And so I'm rarely on the cutting edge of things, and so it's. For me, when it's either a pain point, it's like something that like this is causing me stress, this is taking too long, this is inefficient, I need to learn something new to fix that. Or it's somebody else has done it and they did it for $1 million, and now 10 years later there's a way I can do it for less, and so let's learn that, right? And so it's really out of necessity. For me personally, it's I use Companion, and I keep getting people telling me, "Oh, you need to switch to." I can't remember what's the other one with the Joe Max makes.
Central Control.
Central Control, right? And I said that's great. I've not found something that Companion doesn't do for me. So when I do, then I'm gonna be looking at Central Control, and it's that pain when you run into pain points when I run into things that I can't do and I need to find new solutions for.
Well, yeah, and in that case, it's more about the Stream Deck, that you're happy with the Stream Deck. If you wanted to use an old control surface of something else, then Central Control would be amazing. It'd be like, I've got an old TriCaster control surface that I'd love to use with vMix, and so then you could with Central Control, but not with Companion, right? But yeah, it's a perfect example. The thing that I also find is when you already have the things, you're not buying a new product, but you've already got something, and then there's an update to it or something, and now it does the feature that you need, and you can switch between, it's switching between two different things. I use the Mac for this, but now the PC does this, and they've got this great software, so I'll go back to the PC for this. Oh no, now the Mac has another one, and I'll go back to the Never go back to the Mac.
I don't need to go back to a Mac. Never go back to the Mac. PC all the way. Like, no need for that nonsense.
I think Chris is breaking up. We may have to just let him go. What's that? Who's breaking up? Zach, what do you got on this?
Yeah, so I think my perspective on this question is a little bit more from the idea that, like, with what I've done in off-road, I've kind of changed. I've reinvented the ability to broadcast in a sport that didn't have the opportunity in the past. And I'm looking towards the future. How do you re-innovate? How do you re-progress? How do you shape the future to continue growing and expanding and providing more functionality and staying ahead of inevitably what would be maybe competition or those that would want to take your clients from you. So you're in this constant process of how can I improve? How can I make it easier? How can I make it better? And there's so many different options out there. Like, for instance, if you're stuck in vMix in the GT designer title designer, but there's all these awesome web graphic titling softwares and various different things, you have to explore it at some point. And you got to try it at some point, but you're also trying to excel at the thing that you've been known for and not losing that. So that's kind of the basis of the question is, you have this ability to stay focused and be really good at something. And so I look back at times where like Alex has reinvented this whole live streaming thing with these big clients in the past, and Grant and your team you've really kind of reinvented the Zoom meeting thing, and there's always that next step, that next evolution, and how do we balance trying to push for it hard while also experimenting in the midterm and excelling at what we're doing.
And I've talked about this a little bit, is that I think of everything that I've done for a very long time. And Grant's heard me tell this story many times. I'm always very conscious how many times I've told a story with Grant. Is that I think of
hits. I
think
it.
of my project. Here's the greatest hit. Is that I think of what I do as a career, typically as a tank track. So I've got, let's just say 3 things, and it's sometimes it can be a little bit higher res, but we'll just stick with this. This center tank track is making money. Like, it is what generates revenue for what I'm doing. This one is what is on the way out. These are things that make money, less money now than the main thing that I'm making money at. And I'm not that interested in it anymore. I'm kind of done with that. This is the next thing that I want to do. Like, that's where I'm trying to get to. And it's not making any money yet. And I'm not trying to make it make money yet, because I have something that I figured out how to make money. Now, the key is I focus a lot. About 80%, of my energy is on the thing that makes money. The mistake people make, the mistake I've made in the past, is that I put 50% into what's making money and 50% into what I want to do, and 0% into the thing that isn't. Like, you drop this off too fast. This is still part of what pays the bills. This thing here, if you spend too much time on the thing that's not making money, you're betting on it. Like, you're putting a lot of money on red, or you're putting a lot of whatever, and that's gambling. What you want to do is really make sure that you don't take your eye off the revenue ball of this is what's paying the bills, and so you pay those, you keep working on that. But I always have something out front that I'm, that I'm working on or I'm noodling with. And to put it in perspective, like the theater project, Arena 1, that I'm allowed to talk about. I did ask him. I'm allowed to talk about this. But the Arena 1 project was an idea 10 years ago. 10 years ago, I had this idea. What if we only had one camera, and what if we built this thing, and what if we had, if it was in the perfect place. And so then I thought about it for 6 years, like just talking about it with friends and thinking about it and taking it. Like, when I did concert stuff, we did like the first 4K stream with Natalie Dawn from Pomplamoose, and then we did some stuff with Pomplamoose. All of those things that were free, bringing a bunch of hardware in, doing the stuff, was me thinking about this problem. And we did get some paid stuff too. We did stuff for Taylor Swift and Bruno Mars and Alicia Keys, and so we got paid to do some of the free stuff leads to the paid stuff. So there was playing with it, but constantly thinking about this problem. And then I got into a position where I could do a pitch deck. So I did a pitch deck. This is how this all worked. This is how this would work. This is what this would all look like. And this is how it, this is how we would, do that. But that was 6 years into thinking about it. And then I got a little bit of money to put together a stage, and everyone got to see me experiment with that. That stage led to a bunch of, thinking and people and, other things like that. And so all of those things kind of keep on. And by the way, the stage itself was essentially turned off because it wasn't ready yet, and so then something else, kept on going. But the issue is that you also have to be patient enough with big ideas to know that they take a long time. You know, like it just takes a long time to you know, get them to one place or another. So and I, with Salesforce, for instance, when we started, we were doing green screen for them, green screen interviews. And so we were at all the conferences, like all their presentations. And I just kept on saying, you know, you should record the presentations. Like, you know, then I was saying you should stream the presentations for years. Like, you know, so, you know, like, so it was me, you know, I think that a lot of times people say, oh, they're not interested. And then they stop talking about it. And my wife jokes that I'm the master of the rock hammer, you know, from Shawshank, the little hammer. And she'll see me doing something or in a conversation with someone, and she'll just look at me and she goes like this. And that's the little, I'm using the little hammer. Like, I'll just take 10 years to scrape something off the wall, you know? And so I think that you have to have this kind of glacial approach to things. If you give up too quickly or jump into it too quickly, you oftentimes put yourself at either you don't move forward or you put yourself at risk.
I really like that. And it's the right time of year to be talking about it too, right? Like, what are those 3 tanks this for next year? And what are,
which is funny because I'm about to go into something where there's no more tank track. So like I, you know, like it's, you know, and I'm turning, you know, pushing everything out. It's a weird, in my whole life, I've never had no tank track. You know, like, and
you say that, but when once you get into a new position, any new position, it'll start to break down, and it'll be like, oh, here's the thing that I need to be working on, and here's the here, you know, like it'll break down in a similar way, I'm sure.
It'll be different. Here's the
things bulk of what I spend my time. Spend my time doing this. Here's the new thing I want to be doing, and
but it'll be all inside of one big track.
Yes,
you know,
it'll be a really well designed track.
It's going to look amazing. No sharp edges, a lot of round corners.
It's more round. Yeah, it's much more round. Awesome. Did we finish that one? I think we did. Yeah. All right. Next question. It's a good one.
Craig Kadoki, Toronto, Canada, is asking, here is a video from the Chris from QLab showing off their overhead projection system. They have some very innovative uses. What would you do with this? And he's got a YouTube link here.
Yeah, I saw this a few weeks ago. It's awesome. Have you seen it, Alex?
I did. I couldn't quite get my head around what part. So can you explain?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think the cool thing is that they're in kind of like a black box theater, which is completely flat. You can take all the seats out. It's a flat stage. And so then what they did is put up all these projectors. There's like 8 projectors all shooting down. Or actually, like, yeah, they're with mirrors, right? So they shoot sideways, shoot mirrors straight down. And now the whole floor is covered, even where all the seats are. And now they can put like plates up. And so they could put, it was super practical where it's like, this is where the seats go.
So it's really a space. This isn't a technology. This is a space.
Well, it's a space, but it actually QLab owns the space. So they have a theater as a kind of like a little sandbox that's used as a theater, and is used by, I understand, for community events and things like that. As well as they get time to just come in and play with things. So they have a Mac Studio that's running. I didn't even know that Matrox still had the triple heads to go, but they've got 2 triple heads to go, and it's run these 8 1080 outputs, and that runs all the projectors. And so there's a couple of cool applications. Obviously, they can run scenic things. They can do visualizations. They could put a Winamp visualization on there, which should be fun, and you know, play music and just have, you know, visualizations going. But they can also do like sets, so they can do a basic set design, and it's kind of like a full size floor plan, which I love this idea. It's like, we want to put some flats here, or we want to put a, you know, whatever particular set. They can have that projected and then go and walk around it. Oh, there's not quite enough room. We're going to need to move that. We need to make that a bit bigger before they've even started creating sets. But the seating plan was cool too. It was like, oh, we need 50 seats. Oh, let's turn on the 50-seat seating plan, and now we can put all the seats in the exact right spot because the projector shoots down on it. So Alex, now you don't have to get your rope out to do your seats. They could do a perfectly rounded one as well.
That's really cool. I mean, it is. We have thought about that, about a space that you would be able to project into, where it would line up. And specific to your thing, I know that folks who have done conferences with me know that I'm really particular about seats. So I worked in a conference. I worked in seminars, and we talked a lot about the intentionality of the seats. And we know that people are going to ruin them the moment they walk in. But there was something about when you walk into a conference room and all of the seats are perfect and everything is there, it tells the people who are coming in that this matters. This is something that, there's some, it's, that we're paying attention to the weird little details there that, and everything matters in this room, And so we spent a lot of time on chairs. And one of the things that I did that drove everybody else crazy was I got into this habit of doing this circular system around the stage that no one else did. So it wasn't like that was what seminar things did, which is using what Grant was talking about. Put a C-stand where the speaker's going to stand, pull a line out and swing around and build a radius of chairs. And I just have to say, it looks magnificent when you from even just when you walk in, there's something about it that just looks amazing, especially if you have an overhead shot. But even without it, it just looks magnificent. It's so hard to do. It takes so much time, to do it well. We got pretty good at going fast, but I think that I thought a lot about it even back then, 30 years ago. Wouldn't it be great if I just had a way to project this onto the ground? So I didn't have to we didn't have to use strings. We didn't have to figure it out. There were just little points, and all I got to do is put the chairs on the points. And so that's really cool.
We used to talk about it. I cut my AV teeth. I cut at working at a Hilton hotel with an in-house AV provider, and so we were constantly setting up things, backing down, setting up, and we used to joke about, somewhat joke, it was actually true, was there was this particular banquet staff that we called them the chair technicians. When are the chair technicians coming in? Because it was and they come in, line it up, and get the strings out and stuff. It was super cool. And it's the point that you say is, well, Alex, it's not how people think, it's how they feel. Yeah. And when they walk into a room that is really, really well designed and set up and thought about, considered well, some music playing, there's good lighting, there's a great walk-in state. When you walk into a room like that, you feel like this is really in control. I can relax because this thing's in control. You go into the opposite, where it's just random and people are running around, it's all crazy. You feel uneasy and you don't feel like it's in control, and immediately you feel anxious about it.
It's just such an interesting thing about the cradle to grave experience of anybody going to an event, and how people oftentimes don't pay attention to all those pieces. From the time that I hear about the event and I click on something, we have lots of meetings about all of those things. When they get to that first page, are they clear? That's the number one thing. Are they clear what to do next? Because a lot of people want to tell you all these things, and then you can't find the next button, or you can't find there's so much design. And the thing that gets in the way, the two things that get in the way is, A, you don't spend too much energy on, you don't spend enough energy on that user experience. And B is you spend too much energy on things you think are cool. And so that circular thing, there's a lot of other things we could do too. I felt like that was on the outer edge of satisfying my own interest in doing something that I think is really cool. But a lot of times it's really easy to get into a position where you do something, does it really make a difference for the folks? There is this thing, that this cleanliness, this structure, this amazing, that does make a difference. There's a lot of things we do as event people that does not make a difference. And we'll spend, and even if it did make a little bit of a difference, we'll spend half of the day trying to make something work that is such a small amount. The most important thing is an authentic connection between the speaker and the audience. That's all that matters. All the other stuff is all little things you put on top of that.
So the same goes for online events. thinking through all of the steps. How do people feel when they first connect, and how they, what the flow is from pre-show to the show, and all the different aspects of it is exactly the same, which I really love. So just a little bit of chat in the chat that was just saying about Eurovision having a really mature plot on projection workflows, which is really cool. And they're asking about Resolume, and that was the thing coming back to QLab, was that it actually is really simple to have these. Here's these 8 projectors, and of course they all overshoot each other. There's it's a bit of a mess when you shoot them all down. You roughly lining them up, covering the whole floor of the space that they have, putting that into QLab, and then just lining it all up, and you're adjusting the single canvas, creating sort of a single canvas. It's amazing. Once you do that, you can then just take an image, and you would have a pixel count that's exact. But just getting the ratio right, the height and width of the image, you could create an image that would fit perfectly the stage. And so that's pretty amazing to be able, for a theatre, to be able to send out and say, hey, just so you know, we can project on the whole floor, and this is what the dimensions are if you want to do some, testing out of your sets or whatever. But actually the next question relates to this as well, Guy.
Jeff Ely, Henderson, Texas, asking, what are some of the most innovative or unexpected ways that you've seen projectors used to create lighting effects on theatrical stages?
Zach, what are you saying?
Yeah, I don't know if this is the actual software they used, but I was watching something where they were using a projector. I think this is the software they were using, Music Beam, but basically it allows the projector, it's like specifically made to make the projector look like lasers. So you could program it with your music and do various different effects. And they were using it to basically highlight the people on stage. But the idea is they have specific software to make the projecting beam through a hazer looks like lasers. I thought it was pretty cool.
Wow. That's super cool. Music Beam. Alex?
I don't, I think that one of the things that David Brady was working on is they have this kind of I can't think of it's a Buddhist temple in Japan. Found that they were not attracting enough kids, young adults, and so on and so forth. And so they started working on this projection mapping and some EDM and so on and so forth mixed in with the experience. And David brought it to San Jose, and I went down to watch it. And it's just a fascinating thing of rethinking this process and really mapping things to the inside of the temple, and thinking about that next generation of doing something. Like, it's not something you would typically think of doing that. And it was a really cool experience. And I really thought about how many places that have structures and using projection mapping to still stay within, I would say, the rails of whatever faith that someone might have, but bringing that kind of modern feel to something that might attract the next generation to what's going on there. It was really, I found it really fascinating and really cool. Like, it was just, and I think that there's obviously a lot of geometry that can be cool in those kind of spaces.
Yeah, I've seen Jeff. We did a low budget show, but this was a cool way of doing it. We got a bunch of white boxes that were all just different sizes, and we put them on the stage, and then we just projection mapped them, and we just did it. We were able to just do it in QLab, and so we were able to line up all the spots on these white boxes. And then we just had these different patterns. It worked great. And so we could do like VU meters on them. We could just have them with different colors. We were able to have sponsors' logos on them. Like, it was actually a really simple but a really effective set dressing for a little conference that we had. So that was one thing we did. But the other thing to think of with projection on stages is surprisingly how well a projector looks on a black stage, particularly when you're in a tiered environment, the tiered seating, and they're looking at the stage and they can see the stage really easily. When you project onto it, if you project, bright colors, you can actually get some really good patterns off the black. Same goes for curtains. We talk about it with drapes, or warming the drapes, things like that, where you're adding a bit of pattern to it. And now you're using the projector like a gobo. It's like you've got in a way that just simple patterns that are moving, and you don't have to exaggerate it or go crazy with it because you can. Just having something really simple can create a really nice set. And I've seen things in theatre often where you can do river streams and those sorts of things on the stage, as well as having it shoot up on the back as well. And so you sort of build in these sets that you don't have to actually create sets. You can just do it all in a digital environment. So there's a bunch that can be done. Now that we're doing more and more LED as well, you get LED stages as well, which is incredible to see. So, Guy, you want to add something?
I was preparing for the next question. If we're gonna
look at you.
All right.
Yeah. Next question. Well done.
All right. Raj Andil in Los Angeles, California asks, the artist Pitbull doesn't record in a studio anymore. He takes his engineer with him and they record in his hotel or wherever he is traveling. Is music being recorded outside the studio becoming more common?
Alex.
I was just talking about that. My daughter and her lead singer, doing their own thing, just in the house. I think that it definitely can be. It was seen as revolutionary 30 years ago or 35 years ago. We had on an early office hours, we had Peter Himmelman on, and he was one of the first artists that got their recording contract, and instead of spending it on a studio, bought a bunch of gear, which made Sony really edgy because part of their control is you can make he now had all the things he needed to keep making music. And so I think it depends on the kind of music. I think Pitbull's music is probably needs less of a studio than other music. I'm going to imagine that he does part of what he's doing on the road, and then other things get pulled together in the studio. But I think that there's an authenticity that can happen oftentimes when someone is doing something in a space that they're comfortable in, or where they really are. It could be something that the experience of going to the studio tightens somebody up, because now there's pressure and there's all this money and there's things happening. And sometimes it's, if you're not worried about that, then it's not as big of a deal. But if you are thinking about those things, it can affect, like I worry that my daughter's first spin at doing this stuff was really magical. And I don't know if she'll go to a studio and it'll sound the same, like it'll be as good as it was before. Cause now you're starting to work on it, and you get into this kind of cycle of trying to make it better. And so that's going to be that's always the challenge. And so, but I think a lot of the problem that studios have right now is that so many people, the tools have gotten so good at home that so many people can do it on their own. The downside of that, I think, is that having a really great, if you're really doing something is going to make money, having somebody who knows what they're doing, paying attention to where the mics are and making sure that you've got solid signals, and that, you're going through some good preamps, and those things make a big difference. Like if you're really trying to put together something solid, at some point that kind of stuff matters, and so I think it really, as always, it depends on what you're doing. There's an authenticity of doing it wherever you're at. There's a level of quality that's hard to reach when you don't have someone doing it, and possibly having a producer that's going to pay attention to. There's artists that did really well, and when they got good, they were like, I don't want that producer. I don't want to be produced. We want to do our own thing. Good example is Posies. The Posies out of Seattle. Their first album, really popular, and it was produced. The record, DGC gave them a producer, had them, produce this thing that didn't sound like the Posies. Like it didn't sound like who they actually were. So the second album, they pushed the producer out, wanted to do their own sound. Didn't do as well, it was more them, but it just wasn't. It missed the mark on what needed to happen. So you have to kind of always weigh: do you want someone to help you be successful, or do you want to be yourself? And I think that the studio sometimes helps, can potentially help both.
A slightly different take on this is that I was talking before about the a cappella band that I tour with, and I mean, my standard process is to multi-track record all shows, right? Because I can use them for virtual sound check for the next show. And so I'm always kind of, playing out the last show, and I'm able to do a full virtual sound check. I'm 90% checked before they even get on the stage for their sound check, which makes it about them even more, which is great, right? But the point is, a couple of years ago, it was really, really good. We were 3-4 shows in of a 7 cities or something, 7 or 8 cities. And I didn't want to wig them out, but one of them said, "Hey, have you been recording this?" And I was like, "I have." And I didn't want to say anything, but I seriously think we can make a live album out of this. And we did, and what was super cool is that we made a live album that was just from the tour, and there was some songs from some cities and some songs from other cities. And if you would never pick this, but there was one song that was from 3 cities. It's like we took a verse from this city, we rolled into the chorus from another city, which was really amazing, and it was super cool. And we did a couple of little overdubs here and there, but generally, it was from the live. And so, just the fact that you could say, "Oh man, you could have better recording equipment than the MR18, or you're using radio mics, like wireless mics, and that's what you're using as your recording mics." It's like yes, and yes. And I think it's like all of this stuff is such high quality anyway, and then the post-processing that you can do to make this even better is really amazing. And so and now we captured it was about the content. It was about the live energy that you got. And all I wish is that I had caught more of the room in each place, where I got more of the audience and got more clapping and all that sort of stuff. I got some, but I wish I had more mics for that.
I'm really thinking, I've been playing a lot with obviously ambisonic, and especially as you start looking at Apple's ASAF, the Apple spatial audio format, and doing kind of an ambisonic space. I kind of take the mics everywhere now. It's like a constant, like I just, I'm going to record, like in the studio, I'll record some ambisonic. I don't know how much I'm going to use it. I don't know if I'll go back to it, but there's something, especially if you have your headphones on with an Apple device, you kind of blend into that. And suddenly, like, I have this idea that, because we're going to try to mix a lot of the stuff in 5.1 from the studio. The idea is that though in between songs, we may cut to something where we're kind of mixing a little bit of the whole room into the mix. So you kind of, there's something about it that you just kind of feel like you're there, and it's something I've noticed in the theater stuff that I'm working on. If we don't put enough room or something in the side speakers, I feel like it's great, but it's not, I just don't feel there, and so that's the part I think that ambisonic and just, some wild mics makes a big difference.
Nice. All right. We've got 2 content recommendations. We've got to the end. Guy, what's yours? What's your piece of software?
It isn't a book or a piece of software. It's a piece of content that I was reminded of this one because we just did our Xmas nativity concert, and one of the things the volunteer sound engineer didn't do is ring out the room. And so I watched him on his iPad. I was running camera and I heard this ringing and I was just like, man, you should know better. Like, that's what you do. And this video really sums it up. This live production mastery video. It's called the Ultimate Corporate Audio Pairing. And he's showing off the Allen and Heath SQ5. But I wanted to send this video to the guy at church, but I got to kind of stay in my lane and do my. It's one of those things where it's hard to tell somebody, like, hey, you should really be sweeping, using this tool here. So it's one of those things where I want to recommend it to everybody else here because you should be aware of what goes into rigging out a room and setting up the frequencies in advance and things like that. Our microphones don't have the ability to switch frequencies, or kind of low end, but our Behringer X R18 certainly has the ability to go in there and EQ properly, ring out the room. So I just watched him to where he messed up one of the performers. Like, you can cause so much feedback that somebody stumbles on the piano and now it just derailed them, and now they're asking me to edit out that piece, and I'm like, dude, like, your mess ups making it so I gotta now resync all this stuff. Yeah, it's a nightmare. So anyway, that's my recommendation. I'll put it in the chat.
Good one. Zach.
Yeah, so I found this new update to Mac OS 26.2, I think, or whatever. Super interesting because they came out with this RDMA protocol that allows you to Thunderbolt multiple Mac Studios together and then share the system memory across them. And so Jeff Geerling created an AI supercluster out of Mac Studios, and he goes through the whole process, how it works. He benchmarks across a bunch of AI models, but basically you're stealing system resources across all four to do one thing. And it goes over Thunderbolt 5, and then it goes, or 4, and then it goes only over 3 of them. It doesn't go over all 4 of them. But it's super cool how you can use the memory, like the gigabit, terabit of memory, or whatever you've put in the machine, and then utilize it across multiple machines to do something cool. And he goes back about the history of the X server and how it failed and stuff like that.
Nice one. Chris.
I don't have anything specifically related to production or anything cinematic, but for our friends in the Great White North, season 5 of Shoresy starts on Wednesday. And if you've not seen it and you like hockey, you like funny Canadian stuff, it's fantastic. For everyone else, we'll have to wait for a couple months till it comes on streaming, but you can watch previous seasons now.
Good one. I like that. Alex, what's yours?
I'm running out of time.
You gotta make this count.
I might add a couple. I might say a couple instead of just one. I'm just going to be, but I'll make them really fast. I'm watching the American Revolution right now. I feel like I'm going to have to watch it a couple times. It's just, it's just incredible. Like, it's just, Ken Burns, keeps getting better, and he keeps on getting bigger budgets, and he keeps on putting stuff in. And it's just so much that you didn't know about the revolution. Probably the American Revolution. I mean, there's a lot of things about it that are plus and minus, but probably did change the world. like what happened there. It was a big deal, like globally, if you look at the general trajectory of the world, things are both good and bad. But it's worth understanding how it works. So especially if you're in the United States, it's an amazing thing. There's a thing on YouTube on cinematographer F1 tells the truth about it. Incredible behind the scenes of how the F1 movie got shot. A lot of DGIs, a lot of the Ronin 40s, but also just talking about what they had to do to shoot an actual, like, how do you actually shoot a movie at F1 while F1 is happening? Like, they literally use the real crowds and the cars and everything else as part of the tapestry of the movie, which just created a lot of realism. And, I went to a screening at the Dolby headquarters at their theater, which is pretty nice, in case you're wondering. But they had some of the sound designers, and they said they had the race, some of the F1 racers listening to it and they'd be like, yeah, that's not what the gearbox sounds like between 3 and 4 on that turn. And they had to go back and like they were just like, they were like, that's not what, they really tuned it in. And so some of the behind the scenes is there. And then my last quick one. I'm like an old stick cougar with nothing to lose right now. You only get me one more time. So anyway, the
next week we're gonna get 6.
I'm gonna just here's a whole bunch of things. The last thing, it just popped up on my when I was looking for the F1 thing, it popped up on my For You page or my whatever homepage on thing. The Darling Buds, crystal clear. Here's the music video of it. It's in low resolution. You should watch it. It's fun. It's like an 80s Debbie Harry. and it just brought back good memories. I had lunch with them in 1991 in the World Trade Center. And so anyway, but such a really fun song, and I just forgot how much I liked that song, and then somehow YouTube knew that I would forget how much I loved that song, and if they put it up there, I would like it, and they were right. I don't know how they knew that.
It's crystal clear. All right.
My homepage knows me so well.
Yeah. I keep adding to my watch list. It is nice on YouTube to just add to the watch list, and then the watch list can auto download as well, and so then it can be on your phone when you take flights and things.
That's the best part of my watch list, is like this thing that, that the rest of the family's not going to like, and I just constantly am hoovering it up. And people say, "You're never going to get back to it." I said, "Oh yeah, you will." The one long flight, and you just all these things that you stacked up. In fact, you need a couple long flights to get through some of them. It's good.
Mine would be holiday related. Just simple family fun is the Great Christmas Light Fight on ABC US, and I think you can get it on Hulu as well. And what's cool is that you just see more and more as it's just epic, Christmas lights on people's houses. But how many are like pixel shows now? Like they're just putting out so many pixel lights, and then they're programming all sorts of different, shows and lighting effects. And what I really like about it as well, of course, is no one's getting paid to do those setups, and so it's always just like, yeah, and then I got this from Home Depot, and then I found this in the garage, and I set this up, and so when you get into the background of how people are setting up their holiday lights, is pretty cool. So
holiday lights,
it's holiday.
When people go crazy, I'm just like, wow, that is like, we have some neighbors that have just taken it to another level, and I'm always like, that is so much time I don't have.
Yeah. What am I? It's the 23rd here of December, and my lights aren't up out the front. I was like, I think I've missed it for the year.
We have a fake Christmas tree that sometimes gets put up, and I usually find some excuse to not be in the house when it happens. So
exactly.
I thought the ultimate flex from my neighbor was his generator must have been going, because I went to go fire mine up when the power went out, and his Christmas lights, I mean, there's 162 houses in this neighborhood, and his was the only one just completely lit up. It was so over the top. And he was like, not everything's dark except for his house.
He was so proud of that. He was proud of it. You gotta find some excuse to tell him like how amazing it was that it was on during, because that wasn't done by accident. Like he had thought, what if something goes down? I'm going to be ready so that my Christmas lights never go down. And he had his moment.
It was amazing.
Yeah, and there he was sitting out. He put a recliner out in the front yard. He's got electric heater going, and then he's just scoffing at all the neighbors. Oh, what? You don't have any power? Oh, I've got power to burn here.
You want to charge your cell phone? Let's put out a little strip for you.
That's right. That's awesome. Well, I mean, vehicle to grid is going to be very interesting, as that really takes off, and now people have their cars, and you can just run your house off the car. In times like that, where you've got a 160 kilowatt battery sitting in your car, or that type of thing, that's like, oh yeah, I can run my house for a bunch of days, just off my car. I think that's going to be fascinating as that rolls out more. So. Anywho, thank you everyone. Thank you to the panel. It was a nice little discussion. Thanks to Fenwick, who was here for a few minutes. Speaking of weather and power and all of that,
I think he's got a wireless, like it's one of those point-to-point connections, and it's raining a lot right now. So
yeah,
that's when it doesn't work. That and turkey vultures. I found that turkey vultures block mine. Spread out their wings.
But that's one way to cook them, though. You can.
Yeah, exactly.
You can get it ready for Christmas Day. All right, and the Tlaloc traversal was 5,000 miles. If we had gone, it always helps when I'm on the panel, right? Because it bounces around over the ocean, around the world a few more times. 8,000 kilometers, 40 million bananas for scale. There you go. And thank you to Alexander, Alan, and Mickey for making things happen in the background. And all the buddies in the chat as well. Carl, and Jeff, and Roscoe, and Vic, Robert. There's a bunch. TJ. Oh, there's a bunch of cool names that were in the chat hanging out. And like last week, we are very quickly going to jump into after hours and just kind of hang out, because we have sort of been, sometimes we do sort of post-show discussion in this separate Zoom meeting, and we said, why wouldn't we do that in after hours? And so we move across to after hours as quick as we can, and we can hang out there for a little bit if you want to. That'd be cool. Otherwise, we will see you for extra hours next week, 6 p.m. Pacific. But tomorrow, what is tomorrow? Tuesday. What have we got? Tuesday night. Is there a special tomorrow night? Special at 6 p.m.
Different time. I think it's at noon. It's at noon.
Midday?
Yeah, midday.
Okay. Midday Pacific. Okay.
Laura Davidson from Sure.
Nice.
Yeah. Excited to have her
cool.
back.
That'll be great. All right. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.